afternoon. It's a short video about the new rules from Peter Pig called Conquerors and Kings. These are rules for ancient battles, as it says on the front. Primarily, they're written for battles between any army against any army. So they're not specific to a particular period. But you should fight historically, but it's up to you. This is the second edition. First edition came out in 1998, so 25 years on, here's a second edition. It's a 100-page book, and at the moment it'll sell for £25. Right, we've got a nice glossy cover, lovely. Inside the front cover, there's what's called a battle sheet. All Peter Pig rules have a battle sheet. This is all you need to play the game in terms of making notes and the like. This battle sheet, you can copy it, but they're free of charge on the Peter Pig website. Just download them, use them in a game, and then just chuck them away. The battle sheet lists the game setup, working out defender and attacker, because these rules create the scenario. As a countdown to 36 points, etc. It's all there. Now, looking through the actual book, we've got the contents at the front, introduction, talks about the game table. It's quite a small game table actually, for 15mm. It's only 6 zones wide and only 5 zones deep. And the zone's like a brick shape. But you can make the zones any size you like to fit the table you have. So you might do a 6 foot by 4 foot for 25mm, but a 15mm will do it on 5 foot by 2.5 feet. There's the terms used, obvious there. Scenery, nice pictures of scenery there. Here's some examples. Scenery is done in templates. So the table is into zones, as I said, 5 zones deep and 6 zones wide. And each zone is either open or has a bit of scenery in it. Being ancient battles, there isn't a lot of scenery in the game, but here's some of it here. And it all lists and tells you all about it. There's a typical army down there. It's very small for you to see there, but it's a German tribal army. There's a Imperial Roman army, and there's a New Kingdom Egyptians. Points costs. The points go per unit. So, a typical army might have, say, 15 or 14 units. Each unit's of 3 bases. Now, for example, close order infantry costs 18 points for a unit. Another 8 points if you want to be veteran. 4 more points if you want to have a bow. 12 more points if they're elite. Take 8 points off the shieldless. Take 8 points off the levy. Add 3 on for shock ability. Add 7 on for armour and 4 on for pike, etc, etc. So players buy the troops by the unit. Infantry skirmishers are just 7. There's no variation in that or no modifiers. They're just infantry skirmishers as a generic category. Chariot units are relatively cheap. Cavalry units are relatively expensive. And that gives you an idea of how that works. An army's worth 300 points. Here's some definitions. Battle tactics. Battle tactics. In the ancient days, there were various tactics used by armies, and some tactics were peculiar to some armies. For example, fury, that creates a bit of extra effect morale-wise, psychologically, on the opponent. So these might be hard-charging armies who really get stuck in. So only some of them available to some armies. They're the battle tactics. Talk about the mechanisms in the game, casualties, how to do fights, saving rolls. This is an old-fashioned idea, and the fact you score some hits and have some saving rolls. So both players are engaged, and everything in the rules is using ordinary 6-sided dice. Just ordinary 6-sided dice. There's about the general specific piece in the game. There's 2 generals per side, things he can do. Generals can also have gifts. He'd have a morale gift, a valiant gift, or a fighting gift. There's various information there. The whole rules are laid out in quite large typeface on nice white paper with a nice space around the edge, so they're easy to cope with. As I said, they're only 100 pages long. Talks some peripheral things. There's artillery is in there, little field artillery, not great big stuff. Shock units. Special rules for, because these are all the special types of troops. So as we went through it, there's skirmishers, special troop type. Artillery, bow units, special troop types. Shock units, pike, elephants, and chariots. They're the unit types. Next one tells you how to set up the game. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stages. But that's assuming you've arrived with a box full of soldiers and this does everything. Decides who the attacker is, defender is, scenario changes, the scenery layout, everything. This is a complete game. All you do, turn up with your army, and the game will generate an attack-defense game. Let's move on then. Here's the actual particulars of the setting up. Working out the general's gifts. Choosing the scenery. There's not much scenery in this, only 3 pieces each. The piggy chase is a little mechanism to work out who the attacker and defender is with modifiers. Then we move on to the defender depletions. Defender always has a slightly smaller army because he's defending. Scenery layout, that's how that works. There's little extra rules just here and there, but they can be ignored if you want to get straight on with the game. How to deploy the armies. There we go. Scenario generate. Now, scenario, it makes small changes to what's going on. There are 4 aspects to the scenario. Feeding the army, scouting, strength, determination. And these are things that happen before a battle. So some armies are better supplied, some armies are better on the scouting, etc, etc. You contribute some dice, there's a few little mechanisms, and it makes small changes to the game, not major game-winning changes. Turn sequence for playing the on-table game, very nice. There's a flank attack in this, if people want to do it, flank march. Morales or easily, morales only got 1, 2, 3, 4, there's only 7 modifiers, they can just be memorised. 1 fail, a unit has to fall back, etc, etc. All very simple. Because don't forget, because it's gridded, all movements in terms of zones. Now we go on to, morale is by the zone, so a whole zone might fall back or stop, depending on who's in it, what they're doing, and what the situation is. Fallbacks, movement. Movement, whole zones move as a big lump. You move in and out of a zone, but the zone goes forward together, sideways together, etc, etc. Moving sideways requires dice scores for some troop types, because they're slow to manoeuvre. Leaving scenery, for example, close order infantry need a 5 or 6 to leave scenery, which is quite difficult when they shouldn't be in close order scenery. Elephants aren't allowed in any scenery, except for gentle hills and rough ground. Now moving on, there's pushing units aside, very nice. Movement distances. Movement distances are quite modest because it's a big battle and the units, one zone is quite a bit of movement for them. So moving one zone is normal for infantry, 2 zones for cavalry and chariots, with some little changes here and there. But once again, very, very simple. And because the units move a complete zone, there's no measuring. You just pick them up, plonk them in the next zone. Shooting is with a number of dice. Shooting's not as effective as fighting. Of course, you sit there for a long time, you might lose some bits and pieces, but it's not devastating. Shooting. Skirmishers. Fighting. Fighting is basically a bunch of dice versus a bunch of dice, with all sorts of little modifications to it. Now, how to put the hits down, etc, etc. Here's all the modifiers for a fight. It looks a lot, but only a few of them apply each time. For example, it's good if you've got rear support, good if you've got some veterans present, good if there's lots of close order infantry working together. There's the units, what they get dice to get for it. Bad things are being sorted from a flank, some late units, bow-armed units, the things you might expect. Moving on, there's the fight outcomes. Fights can either be major wins or small wins. Once again, all memorisable. Pursuit often causes more dead people after a fight than the actual fight itself, because this is when the troops aren't holding the ground. Reinforcements, there we go. Ending the game. Now, once the game is over, the win isn't just a yes, no, or who's got a foot on the bridge. It's a combination of the zones you own and of the other criteria of people you've killed, that sort of thing. There's pictures there, which are a bit small to be seen there. Now, there's examples of the zones. So this player's captured these zones, so he gets a 6, a 3, a 6, a 3, 3 and a 2, 1, etc. Because it's what they hold. Defender gets more points for his zones because he can hold his battle line. There's the actual victory points there. They're not actually very much to it, but there's things taken into account, like the quality of the army, whether you killed generals, what quality troops you had, etc. Interpretation results. So you come away not just saying, oh, I could have won that or whatever. You say, no, here's the result. It could be a small win, significant win, major win, or superb win. Now, some bits and pieces here. Army constructions is how to build the armies. Now, the army lists aren't a published book. They're free on the Peter Pig website. You can download it anytime you like. That means you can have a little browse at the armies, and we can add new armies onto it. No problem at all. There's the point system again. Odds and ends. Now, optional rules. You could have mounted infantry, but they're really optional. Dismounted cavalry, they're optional. Battlefield defences, optional. Camels, river crossings, that sort of thing. Now, the other thing we've got here is some randomised scenery. Now, if you want to, you can theme your scenery to the sort of areas it's in. So it goes from very damp to very hot. And each theme there tells you what scenery you'd have. For example, if it's rolling plains with fine views, you might have 1 wood template, 2 village templates, and 2 gentle hill templates. If you went for very hot, and that's extreme hot up there, you'd have 4 gentle hills, 1 rough ground, and 1 obstructing. And that's how it goes. That's the rules. There's a few frequently asked questions. There's an index at the back which might help people. And the back cover, there's a spare one here, is the play sheet. There's your play sheet, 2 sides to it. Once again, free of charge on the Peter Pig website. You can't do better than that. And here's the one you get in the book. It's a nice double-sided sheet. That's all you need for a game, just that. You shouldn't really have to look in the rule book because everything is fairly straightforward. And it's got everything you need on there. It's done like that, so you can lay it on the edge of the table and it doesn't interfere with the actual game. This game's designed so your figures are on the play area, but off the play area, because it's not a very deep table, is all your junk, your dice, your pens and bits and pieces. Anyway, that's Conquerors and Kings. This is the second edition, 2023, and I'm speaking to you now in November. October's just ended, so November 2023. Second edition, first edition is 25 years ago. So you bought the first edition, hope you got good value out of it for those 25 years. This one, it'll be another 25 years. I'll be dead by then, but nonetheless, there might be a third edition in 25 years' time, which is quite nice, and rules get renewed so often anyway. Anyway, thanks for having a look. Bye for now.